so we live in a house that was built in 1790, and all my growing up times, the old timers in our rural community here always say that when they were kids, even in the dead of winter, when it was 0 outside, every morning they remember their mom opening the front door and the back door of the house for like 5 minutes and just letting air go through. And then they close the door because air is, of course, I mean, the wood and the internal house, I mean, it warmed right up. It wasn't that hard to. You didn't lose a lot of ambient heat in the house by letting cold air go through for a few minutes because there's so much thermal mass in the house that it immediately heats right back up. But he said that was common, absolutely common practice, in his memory, in their memory. Um, so my my main I've got two questions. One is we're back to the ancient grains. Is this a worse problem now because our houses are so tight? And was your builder, did your builder cheat from normal building? In other words, your house was inspected by a building inspector, probably. Um, uh, were typical protocols violated in building your house? And were you able to solve it with retrofitting it? Were you able to remedy your house, or did you end up um, whatever demolishing the house? So I got several things there. One is it are our houses too tight? B, are the principles, the problems that you cited here, you let this whole list of problems, um, do most builders not violate those? And C, what did you do on your house?
Okay, so let's start in first question, which is how 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 bad is the problem now versus how bad it used to be? I think homes used to be built with airflow in mind, and so before centralized HVACs were invented, you had to have airflow. You had to have ways for air to move through the house because fresh air is critical. We know already just from EPA research that indoor air is 100 times plus more polluted than outdoor air because of the chemicals we use on our carpets, our furnishings, our all the things that are in our house that make it pretty are potentially toxic and outgassing at any given moment in time. And so what's happened over the last many years, decades, is that we build tighter houses to save energy because everybody wants the planet to not be destroyed. And so there's a noble thought of, hey, let's save energy and make energy efficient homes. And in so doing, we rely solely on HVAC systems as the lungs of the house. And a lot of these HVAC systems have variable air exchangers where they're electronically programmed. The damper opens to allow fresh air in, just like you hear the old timers saying, "Hey, open the front and the back and let fresh air in." Well, we have HVAC systems that open a valve that let fresh air in. Generally they're set up to variety of ranges, but say 5 minutes out of every hour, you're pulling fresh air into the house and you're running it through a filter and then you're air conditioning it or you're heating it so that you're removing the moisture from it so that you can get fresh air exchange. Well, mechanical systems break and
Mm.
they break all the time. I mean, how many things have you ever had to fix, especially on a farm where you probably coming up with creative ways to fix things all the time. um, People don't understand. They think I bought my house, it's good. Maintenance, what is that? People outsource all their maintenance, just like people outsource their health to doctors who don't know anything about health. They outsource the maintenance of their number one investment to strangers who don't really understand mold or environmental illness as it relates to HVAC systems in the home and the importance of that. So now, so I think the problem with tighter homes is that you have a lack of understanding of potential for vapor drive and for moisture to penetrate and stay in the house and allow for multiplication. But number two, I think so part two of that is why is this problem more today than it ever was? Unskilled labor. Look, we grew up with tradesmen, craftsmen that could carve a staircase, and it was beautiful. And, the woodwork, and there was pride in the work. And It wasn't about scalability of a business model where we build as many houses as fast as we can, as cheap as we can, and sell them for the most profit that we can. And when you're bringing in people who, like, I remember when my house was being built, I should have listened to my intuition then, but I kind of dismissed it. I walk in, they're putting tile in the bathroom, and there's an arch that they're tiling, and the tile guy looks at me and he says, "Man, this is really hard." And I thought to myself, "That's your trade? Like you should be skilled. You should be like, this is not really hard. You shouldn't be telling me like." Anyway, I did follow my intuition in a sense. I got rid of him. I said, we need to get another Tyler because this shouldn't be rocket science. Like I want people who know what they're doing working on my home, but that's just not the case. You've got unskilled labor, and so shortcuts are taken. There are codes, and certainly there are building inspectors, but the problem is, what do you have to do to become a building inspector?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is no assault or affront on building inspectors. Some great ones out there. One of my favorite online building inspectors. I follow him now because he points out so many flaws that could lead to mold growth. His name is Cy. If you look him up on TikTok, you'll learn a whole lot about building inspection. And he goes out and he re-inspects homes after they've been inspected because a lot of these guys are just I think, Joel, I think we're in the era where we're going to mourn the loss of true craftsmen and tradesmen
Yeah.
because everybody's just trying to make a buck and they're not doing it well. There's no pride in workmanship. And this is translating into dangerous times,
Yeah.
especially with homes. The EPA and OSHA, or NIOSH, not OSHA, NIOSH, already estimate that 50% of houses in the United States are water damaged, which doesn't mean that 50% of homes have mold. It just means that 50% of homes have had water damage, and so there's the potential for them to have mold. We don't know what the number is on mold. We don't know. I don't think anybody's really researched it enough.
Hmm.
But in our case, we had a building inspector, but he found a few problems that we fixed, but he didn't find any of these really core essential defects that led to the moisture accumulation in our home. And so in our case, our house, at this point, we're in litigation. October, we'll have a better answer for you. But my house is evidence right now, so I can't even tear it down. And the thing is, this is another reason why I'm doing the documentary. Like, I look at myself as, I'm blessed. God has blessed me. Um, he's put me in a very tough predicament because, I had to basically buy a new home and put it up next door to
You're,
my.
you're not living in that house now.
Oh, absolutely. We moved out the day we got the pictures of the mall. We moved out the very day. I haven't been back in to live in it. I've been back in with chemical warfare masks and and Tyvek suits and other things just to because we've had to for almost 4 years we've had to maintain the home, run the air conditioning and the heater, pay for that because it's litigation and they've stretched it out and dragged it out so long. I've had to basically maintain two households.
Yeah.
And what I was saying is, I'm blessed enough that I could afford to do that,
Right.
but
Right.
I shouldn't have had to. But to me, this is God's way of saying, you better make something out of this. You better turn this experience into something that can help and serve other people because not everybody's going to be able to afford to move next door. Look, I'm on property, I'm on a farm. So, I had the land to move next door. If this would have been my house in a neighborhood, what would I have had to do? I've had to buy a completely entirely new house or rent one, not knowing whether or not it had mold in it. And so then you go through all that, and so the financial burden can become quite great. And then you have to hire engineers and experts, and so you're spending, an inordinate amount of money just trying to figure out what's wrong because the builder's incentivized to not know what's wrong and to cover up any kind of blame they may have in the problem.
So the builder right now, the builder is digging in his heels saying it's not our problem.
Well, that's what litigation is, right? So
Well,
what
I
what
mean,
happened is,
I'm assuming
yeah,
that because you said you were in litigation, so
So
I'm
we
assuming,
gave them a
I'm
forensic.
assuming, I'm assuming that the builder didn't come around and say, "Oh yeah, it's all my fault. I'm sorry. I'll build you a
No,
new."
no, 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 no. So builders play the time game because they know most people can't afford to go
Right.
the route of litigation. And also a lot of people with when they're building their homes, they sign what's called an arbitration clause, which means if you have a legal issue with the home down the road, that you waive your trial your trial by jury, and so an independent arbitrator gets to come in and be the the basically gets to be God over the case, right? What they say is final. And so that whole process, which is supposed to be expedient, has been anything but expedient.
Sure.
And so, most builders know that. They know that that system works in their favor because most people just want to move on with their life. Like, I just want to move on. I don't
Sure.
really
Sure.
want to think about mold. I want to move on, but the reality is the only way I can move on is to solve it and to hold the people that responsible for the damage to my livelihood and to my family are held accountable, and that also that this knowledge can make it out into the world so that people who are going through this don't think that they're crazy.
Friends, want to dive deeper into our thought provoking conversations? Become part of the Beyond Labels family today by joining below. For any gift amount, you'll get access to the full, uncut episodes.
Every contribution, whether big or small, keeps this podcast going.
So join us and expand your Beyond Labels experience. Thank you.